Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to episode 15 of the 19th Century American System podcast. I imagine this has grown to be your favorite conversation, presentation, discussion on the subject of American system of political economy. If that's the case, we're only just getting started. As usual, I have none other than the world's leading authority on the subject of American system of political economy. Drum roll, Mr. Neil Martin. Mr. Neil Martin has for us today a presentation about one of those characters that you should have known about, but you don't, unfortunately. But here's the opportunity to become a friend of John B. Byles. And the subject today is the Sophism of Free Trade. So as usual, I'll give my introduction, and Neil is going to dive straight in. John B. Byles is a barrister, British protectionist, who wrote the book Sophisms of Free Trade. Academia only wants to remember Byles for court cases, but as we know, and as Neil has consistently revealed, that is just a cover-up. It's intense. He's a modest scholar, but he's on the case. In political economy, Byles did things that had not been done before. What ghost do the British dread the most? Is John Baptiste one of those ghosts? We'll find out. Byles is no ordinary British writer on political economy. He mentions and quotes Jonathan Swift for a page concerning the problems of Ireland and how to remedy them to promote domestic manufacturers. Byles also speaks favorably of Henry Carey, the Sovereigns, Friedrich List, John Baptiste Colbert, and Benjamin Franklin. This book, Sophisms of Free Trade, is the first book to mention all those five prominent protectionists. What Byles did was historic. Byles is the first political economist to say that Carey is right on his refutation of Malthus and Ricardo. And guess what? Byles is British. I repeat, he is British. A British writer on political economy saying Malthus and Ricardo are wrong is unheard of in Great Britain. This guy vindicates Henry C. Carey. This is no ordinary writer on political economy. Byles writes about Dean Swift. He's not the first to do this, but it is how he introduces the subject of Ireland. This is post-repeal of the Corn Laws. Free trade is the undisputed champion, and protectionism in England is dead. The British are at fault. Free trade gets a black eye, and the policy Ireland was under in the 1700s is like a colony, something free traders have amnesia about. European colonialism is not going to be seen without free trade, and if you read the Swift quote, Byles uses, we see that Ireland is not an equal to the British, and the Act of Union of 1800 did not even make it better. John Baptiste is a Brit speaking out against free trade. What is free trade? Just a long litany of lies. Repeal the Bubble Act. Buy in the cheapest market. Protection will destroy external trade. Don't overgovern. Free importation is a source of plenty. Protection of scarcity. The currency should vary. If it were entirely metallic, increase of exports and imports is the index of national prosperity. Don't undertake to employ the able-bodied pauper productively, and don't tax the nation for the benefit of the producing class. Take care of the consumer and let the producer take care of himself. These are sophisms of free trade, and John Byles addresses all of them in his book. The biggest one, however, is this one. They say foreign commodities are always paid for by British commodities. Therefore, the purchase of foreign commodities encourages British industry as much as the purchase of British commodities. Think about it. This sophism of free trade states that there's no difference between domestic commerce and foreign trade, that they equally support domestic manufacturers. Does that mean that foreign commerce does not harm domestic manufacturers? Because if it does, then buying in the cheapest market is a boon to domestic commerce. John Byles blows this sophistry out of the water using an unusual suspect by the name of, guess who? Adam Smith, the god of free trade. John Baptiste is not your ordinary British writer on political economy. If I haven't said that enough times. You will meet with disdain if his book was actually looked at. In fact, there's no commentary on popular websites, but on Wikipedia on Byles' Sophisms of Free Trade. The modest scholar Neil Martin, this guy right here, Neil Martin, is responsible for that. The free trade narrative does not like covering protectionists. They do their best to make sure nothing is known about them, but have no fear. Protectionism is not dead. It is forgotten. And the British system of free trade worked very hard to make this happen. However, protection is the ghost that the British fear the most. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to none other than the world leading authority on the American system. Neil, take it away.
Okay, so the presentation is going to be on Sir John Byles. Can you go to the next slide, Victor? Okay, so this is no ordinary British political economy writer. Sophisms of Free Trade was originally written in 1849. This edition is the 1850. It is the 8th edition one, which was published in 1851. Right? Go to the next slide, Victor. Okay, the Adam Smith they don't want you to see. Adam Smith said something about foreign trade that is not repeated in the schools of free trade. They never mentioned this quote. But protectionists mentioned this quote. Protectionists such as Richard Oyster of England, another Brit, John B Byles, Henry Carey, George B Curtis, Henry Hoyt, Van Buren Denslow, mention on how Adam Smith favored domestic commerce more than foreign commerce. Why is Adam Smith saying that? We're going to quote from The Wealth of Nations. This is the first political economy book that uses that quote in The Wealth of Nations. When both are the produce of domestic industry, that is commerce or of manufacturers, it necessarily replaces by every such operation two distinct capitals, which have been employed in supporting productive labor, and thereby enables them to continue that support. The capital which sends Scotch manufacturers to London and brings back English manufacturers and corn to Edinburgh necessarily replaces by every such operation two British capitals, which had both been employed in the agriculture or manufactures of Great Britain. Next slide, Victor. This is one big quote, so it's two slides in one. Adam Smith, the Adam Smith they don't want you to see continued. The capital employed in purchasing foreign goods for home consumption. When this purchase is made with the produce of domestic industry, replaces two by every such operation, two distinct capitals, but one of them only is employed in supporting domestic industry. The capital which sends British goods to Portugal and brings back Portuguese goods to Great Britain replaces by every such operation only one British capital. The other is a Portuguese one. Though the returns, therefore, of the foreign trade of consumption should be as quick as those of home trade, the capital employed in it will give but one half the encouragement to the industry of productive labor of the country. So Adam Smith is saying domestic commerce encourages domestic industries more than foreign commerce. What does he mean by this? What is so important about domestic commerce? Well, put it this way, right? If you have domestic commerce in your nation, you have more taxpayers. You have more people depositing funds in money shops. You have more people paying mortgages. You have the city collecting more taxes. You have the county collecting more taxes. You have the state collecting more taxes. And you actually have vibrant cities and vibrant communities. On the other hand, if you say we want to buy in the cheapest market, you're going to be decreasing domestic consumption. You're going to be decreasing domestic commerce. And if you're decreasing domestic commerce, you're headhunting domestic industries, right? So domestic commerce is championed by the American system of political economy. Adam Smith, he favors domestic commerce over foreign commerce, but Adam Smith is no fan of national sovereignty. The British, who love free trade, do not like national sovereignty. For them to see Adam Smith say that domestic commerce is better than foreign commerce is a big red flag. Adam Smith had the biggest red flag out of any British free trader. Adam Smith contradicts free trade by saying domestic commerce is better than foreign trade. What does this mean? This means that no, it's wrong to buy in the cheapest market. It is wrong to look after the consumer. It is wrong to tell the producer to piss off. It is wrong to have the state government actually having a good banking philosophy. Because I tell you this, and I guarantee you this, the countries that go by expanding foreign trade, by free trade, what is their banking philosophy? What is their government philosophy? Their government philosophy is opposed to the general welfare. Their banking philosophy will never utilize public credit to love the population, right? So here we have it. Domestic commerce supports domestic industries more. And what is so important about domestic industries? As I said, it employs the population. You create a tax base, right? Isn't it good to create a tax base where the population is actually working meaningful jobs, where they can make contributions towards civilization? Working at Starbucks, working in the service sector, working on OnlyFans is not going to show you that the country has a mission to colonize the moon. It's not. I don't want to hear anybody saying that employing people in the service sector has the vision of colonizing the moon and extracting helium-3 for fusion power. That is just not going to happen. Free trade is bankrupt. It needs to be destroyed. Next slide, Victor. Okay. Adam Smith did lots of damage to free trade. Wow. Adam Smith did something to free trade. You don't hear this from free traders. The free traders cover up the crimes of Adam Smith on where Adam Smith is wrong. Here's what George B. Curtis says about that quote. These observations of Adam Smith derive additional weight from the quarter from which they come. They are the admissions of the founder of the existing school of political economists on a point of vital importance, so vital that it affects the entire theory of free trade. John B. Byles is saying Adam Smith threw the monkey wrenches at free trade by saying domestic commerce is better than foreign commerce. I have spoken to free traders. I have spoken to libertarians. Libertarians are nothing but left-wing free traders, or right-wing anarchists, right? They don't even recognize something's wrong in that quote. They don't understand the quote because they're post-Carnes free traders. Post-Carnes free traders are not going to be the ones who are going to attack Adam Smith, but someone is going to attack Adam Smith, right? So we have this quote, right? This quote says that free trade has been damaged. What is free trade known to do? Free trade is known to exacerbate foreign trade. Who teaches foreign countries to have an export economy and not an economy based off of domestic commerce? The same faction, such as the World Bank, such as the IMF, such as free trade think tanks and Western governments and central banks that do not want to build basic economic infrastructure. They have no policy at all on building basic economic infrastructure. They will not join the Belt and Road Initiative because they don't want to promote the general welfare, right? Don't want to promote the general welfare. So these free traders, they don't want to promote the general welfare. They know that domestic commerce is box office. They don't want to see domestic commerce. They want the population to accept free trade. But Adam Smith just ruined the whole thing. What economist attacks Adam Smith for saying that? Now, if a prominent free trader attacks Adam Smith for saying, no, you're wrong, foreign trade is better than domestic commerce, buying in the cheapest market is better than domestic commerce, who is that free trader that attacked Adam Smith? If you ask this question to free traders, they don't know it. If you ask communists, you don't know it. But if you ask a modest scholar named Neil Martin will tell you that the person that rebuked and attacked Adam Smith was no other than the devil, David Ricardo, right? David Ricardo rebuked Adam Smith for saying that domestic commerce is better than foreign commerce. What did David Ricardo say? What did David Ricardo have a vision of that would measure the prosperity of an economy? Let's see what he says. Victor, next slide. All right. This is David Ricardo, one of the children of Satan, right? David Ricardo doing damage control. Yes, the free traders are doing damage control on Adam Smith. Will they ever admit this? No. Mr. Ricardo, in combating Adam Smith's position that a capital employed in the home trade gives twice as much encouragement to the industry and productive labor of the country as a capital employed in the foreign trade. The trade with Portugal, for example, makes these observations. The argument appears to be fallacious. This is David Ricardo speaking now. For though two capitals, one Portuguese and one English, be employed as Dr. Smith supposes, still a capital will be employed in the foreign trade, double of what would be employed in the home trade. Suppose that Scotland employs always a capital of £1,000 in making linen, which he exchanges for the produce of a similar capital employed in making silks in England. £2,000 in a proportional quantity of labor will be employed in the two countries. Suppose now that England discovers that she can import more linen from Germany for the silks, which she before exported to Scotland, and that Scotland discovers that she can obtain more silks from France in return for her linen than before obtained from England. David Ricardo wants to destroy domestic commerce at all costs. He is using buying in the cheapest market. If you ask anybody, if you can spend $50 on a pair, if you can spend $50 on 3 jeans compared to spending $50 on 1 pair of jeans, you're going to go with $50 for 3 pairs of jeans. You're going to go with, okay, I don't have to spend money. I don't have to spend more money to get what I want. I can actually spend the same amount of money and get more. This is what foreign trade and free trade lures people into accepting, buying in the cheapest market. What is that going to do? That is going to headhunt domestic commerce. And if you headhunt domestic commerce, what are you doing? You're ruining the tax base, right? You're going to see a decrease of economic activity in banks. That's for the physical economy. You're going to see a decrease in domestic industries. You're going to see a decrease in city taxes, county taxes, state taxes. What are going to be the functions of the banks? Are the banks going to be loaning money, private credit to businesses, farmers, people wanting mortgages? What's going to happen? The only thing that is going to happen is that you're going to destroy the diversity of employments. And David Ricardo is no friend of the sovereign nation state. David Ricardo does not want to build nation states. David Ricardo does not like the agro-industrial economy. David Ricardo wants countries to have an export economy and to make what they can the best. He doesn't want them to be independent. Adam Smith said something that just exploded David Ricardo's mind, right? And the first political economist to say Adam Smith rebuked, the first British economist to rebuke Adam Smith was David Ricardo. John B Byles is the first political economist to say that. So what we have done, we have seen on how Adam Smith has said domestic commerce is better than foreign commerce. I have shown you what domestic commerce does. Domestic commerce raises the physical economy. Domestic commerce increases city, state, county taxes. Domestic commerce has private credit thriving. Domestic commerce is a sensational, beautiful view of man. Next slide show, Victor. Now we're going to venture into foreign policy. John B Byles said something that British free traders or British statesmen do not talk about. Remember, this is being said post repeal of the Corn Laws, right? Where the British Empire was at its height, where free trade was the policy of the British Empire. And they absolutely love this. But hold on. Sir John Baptiste said something that will piss off every Brit if they're truly evil. A Brit quoting Benjamin Franklin. This is unheard of. He's not the first to do it, but this quote is box office. All right. This is John B Byles. Dr. Franklin, in his rules for reducing a great empire to a small one, has these observations. This is Benjamin Franklin. I address myself, says he, to all ministers who have management of extensive dominions, which from their greatness have become troublesome to govern. In the first place, gentlemen, you are to remember that a great empire, like a great cake, is most easily diminished at the edges. Turn your attention, therefore, first to your remotest provinces, that as you get rid of them, they next may follow in order. As we get rid of our colonies, we shall successfully close the colonial markets. all emancipated colonies would do as the United States have done. They will protect and develop their own producing power. Wow. A Brit quotes Benjamin Franklin saying, the British, you don't need to have colonies. Get rid of them. Could you imagine someone saying this in the parliament, saying that we don't need colonies, we should get rid of them, and that they should follow in the footsteps of the United States of America? And what are the footsteps? The footsteps is the American system of political economy. John Baptiste wants all the colonies to implement the American system of political economy to show their productive power. The British don't want to do that. The British don't want to do that. So who's Benjamin Franklin? Benjamin Franklin is one of the leading founding fathers, right? All these people that talk smack about the founding fathers, what do they say about this quote? The British Empire should dissolve their colonies. What's 1619 going to say about this quote? Benjamin Franklin is still a racist and he owned slaves. That's what they're going to say, even though that's all false, right? Benjamin Franklin was used strategically in the Sophisms of Free Trade. And I have to tell you this, there is no political economist in England or in the United States of America or continental Europe in the 19th century that has this quote in their political economy book. John Byles is surpassing expectations, right? So we have a situation where John Baptiste, as I said, just said that England, the British Empire, needs to dissolve its colonies. The British are not going to feel too well about this. Dissolve the British Empire. I mean, this might not raise eyebrows to some people, but I'm reading John Byles, Sophisms of Free Trade, and he quotes Benjamin Franklin. He quotes a leading founding father, a quote that I have never seen in a political economy book. I've seen Benjamin Franklin mentioned. I've seen how Benjamin Franklin says we need agriculture and manufacturers side by side. I've seen that. But him saying we need to dissolve the British Empire, and John B Byles saying, yes, I agree with that. Not only that, but the former colonies need to go with a policy of the American system of political economy. This is a historic book, Sophisms of Free Trade. Very historic. Next slide, Victor. All right. The next Sophism of Free Trade says, don't undertake to employ the able-bodied pauper productively. This is a disgusting view of man. And what we got to remember about the British Free Trade School, they have a disgusting view of man. Now, I'll read the title again, the heading. Don't undertake to employ the able-bodied pauper productively. Free traders see nothing wrong with that. Ricardo Malthusians see nothing wrong with that. Here's the quote. Not to deal in general observations, but to come to particular instances. Look at the drainage of large towns. The accumulated filth now corrupts the air, weakens the constitution, deteriorates the race of human creatures, poisons any neighboring river, and so cuts off a natural and abundant supply of pure water. To carry off the poison permanently and effectually, to restore the supply of water, to convert the refuse, both liquid and solid, to the most valuable and efficacious of manures, fertilizing not only the surrounding districts, but capable of being carried by railways to the ends of the kingdom, and so indefinitely increasing the supply of homegrown food. To do all this requires nothing more than the labor of those who now sit in the neighboring workhouses looking at their feet. Such gigantic enterprises may or may not answer to individuals. They are certain to answer to the public. The public have the labor for nothing. That is to say, it costs them no more than it did if they did not employ it. Okay. So the British are of the opinion, do not undertake to employ the able-bodied pauper productively. John Baptiste disagrees with this. John Baptiste has a superior view of man. The British have a satanic view of man. Who in their right mind would say, do not undertake to employ the able-bodied pauper productively? John B Byles says, okay, the public needs to do massive basic economic infrastructure projects. We have the able-bodied pauper. They can do the work. But the British system says, no, we're overpopulated. We don't want to increase the population. If we give them work, it's going to increase the population. Right? This is the same faction that has a disgusting view of man. They don't want to employ man properly. What type of economist would say, okay, we have a problem? They see that anybody saying don't undertake to employ the able-bodied pauper productively. Pauper means poor person, right? And I state again, that's a horrible, disgusting view of man. So if you have a disgusting view of man, you're not going to have a good banking philosophy. You're not going to have a good government philosophy. What do I mean by banking philosophy? Well, if you want to build public improvements, you're going to need public credit and private credit. You want to employ people productively. OnlyFans is not productive labor. Working at a pot shop is not productive labor. Working for DraftKings, working for Bitcoin or whatever they call it, that's not productive labor. That's not a high view of man. That's a disgusting view of man. It's not going to have mankind grow. It's not going to have mankind know that he contributed to the future. Do human beings want to make a contribution to the future, or are they only concerned about pleasure? Do they want to follow Adam Smith, or do they want to follow Henry C. Carey and Lyndon LaRouche, right? I saw this quote. I said, this is powerful. John B. Byles is saying, we have to employ the able-bodied pauper productively, and I have an idea on how to do it. He has an economic solution. He doesn't have a political solution. Don't look for political solutions. Look for economic solutions, right? You create an economic solution and you act on it immediately. If you do not want to act on economic solutions, you know better than Paul Wolfowitz. You know better than Benjamin Netanyahu. You know better than Macron. You know better than Joseph Biden. You know better than Blinken. You know better than so-what called economists in the West, right? These economists in the West do not want to employ the population properly. I don't see no political economists complaining about the growth of OnlyFans. I don't see no political economists complaining about the movement to legalize drugs. I don't see it. They do not want to employ people properly. And if you do not want to employ people properly, what makes you think that you want them to have high living standards? What makes you think that you see basic economic infrastructure to combat poverty? Do the Ricardo Malthusians want to combat poverty? No. They say don't undertake to employ the able-bodied pauper. All right, Victor, next slide. Oh, hold on, real quick. I got to set us up. Okay, so these major public works projects, how are they going to be financed? They're going to be financed through public credit and private credit, right? Did Sir John Byles say anything about the wonders of public credit? So far, he has said domestic commerce encourages domestic industries more than foreign commerce. So far, he revealed that David Ricardo rebuked Adam Smith, the first political economy book that ever did that. The first one, right? He quotes Benjamin Franklin, dissolve your empire. John B Byles says that's not enough. You're going to dissolve the British Empire, and those former colonies are going to implement the American system of political economy. Wow, that will cause a major freakout. Then we get to the point where it says, don't undertake to employ the able-bodied pauper productively. Someone who says something like that, they don't like public credit. They have a horrible view of man. Victor, next slide. All right. Credit. Talking about it is great government philosophy. One of my favorite parts in reading political economy books is when a political economist has a beautiful banking philosophy, or he talks about public credit or private credit. Let's see what John Baptiste has to say. We include the power of raising money or means for enterprises, great and small, of all sorts, public and private. In other words, credit. What is credit? Trust in the solvency and punctuality of the paymaster. Touch a country with this talisman, and capital, even in the other and material sense, springs up instantly. It does not occur from savings merely, as modern political economy poorly and inadequately teaches, but starts up in huge masses, instantaneously, or created for the very income themselves, from which the savings are made. You now produce first and pay afterwards. This is John B Byles saying this. This is a British economist who was a barrister, but he was also Irish too. The Irish were under misrule in England. John B Byles is saying credit is like a talisman. He is saying credit means trust in the solvency and punctuality of the paymaster. Okay, so if people have a high view of credit, are they going to have a low view of government? Are they going to limit and restrict the government? No. People who love public credit have a high view of government, and they say the only reason that government has the right to exist is to promote the general welfare. And I got that from Lyndon LaRouche. The only reason why I see this quote as so important is because I'm a student of Lyndon LaRouche, right? He knows about political economy, right? Lynn always spoke favorably about public credit. And if you're talking about public credit and you favor public credit, it's a shoo-in that you have a high government philosophy, a high view of man, and a beautiful banking policy, right? Now, the people who do not like public credit, what are they doing? NATO's war against Russia, the genocide in Palestine, people attacking the BRICS. How in the world are you going to attack the BRICS when the BRICS has an excellent banking philosophy? Donald Trump, you need to wake up. The BRICS has an excellent banking philosophy, and you need to join the BRICS and the Belt and Road Initiative. You have to learn about credit. You have to start reading Lyndon LaRouche. You have to understand the American system of political economy. You have to understand that there's a difference between William McKinley and the British concubine Theodore Roosevelt. Do not mention the names of Theodore Roosevelt in the same sentence as William McKinley, because William McKinley was the best protectionist in the post-Civil War era. And what do protectionists like? They love public credit. Why do protectionists like public credit? You produce first and you pay afterwards. Okay, so public credit works for the dreams of the people. The pay-as-you-go system doesn't have any foresight at all whatsoever. The pay-as-you-go system says, okay, you have these infrastructure projects that total up to trillions of dollars. Well, you're just going to have to save up to build them. That doesn't make any sense. Are you going to tell people who want a home, who have gainful employment, oh, you're just going to have to save up for 20 years or 30 years to buy a house? No, you don't do that. That's what mortgages are there for. Private credit, right? But the free traders are not thinking like that. They don't want to use government for creativity. They want to use government to limit government. And who is the master of that? Adam Smith. Friedrich List points out on how Adam Smith had a horrible government philosophy. Horrible government philosophy. So people who are opposed to credit have a dismal government philosophy. But what do these people who have a bad government philosophy and who hate public credit do? Let's take a look at the Belt and Road Initiative. Hillary Clinton sees the Belt and Road Initiative as a debt trap. That's how she attacks credit. Who in the world will say public credit and private credit is a debt trap? What do you want to do? Do you want to upbuild civilization? Or do you want to create a hell upon earth? Right? Public credit makes dreams come true. They work for the dreams of people. We need the Belt and Road Initiative. All these attacks on the Belt and Road Initiative by neocons like Hillary Clinton, calling the Belt and Road Initiative a debt trap. What does she want to build? Seriously, what does she want to build? All she wants to build are bubbles. Just like with Alan Greenspan. Just like with the central banks of Europe. Just like with people who are obsessed with Bitcoin. Just like people who are obsessed with Adam Smith. They don't want to build basic economic infrastructure. The sole purpose of public credit is to promote the general welfare. The Belt and Road Initiative promotes the general welfare. But Hillary Clinton calls the Belt and Road Initiative a debt trap. She does not want to take responsibility before God and their fellow man. If you don't want to take responsibility before God and your fellow man, you're not going to come up with a policy of public credit. You're not going to have a good banking philosophy. You don't want to promote the general welfare. And you sure as hell don't want to employ the able-bodied pauper productively. Right? So this is very important. If you talk about public credit, you have to talk about view of man, you have to talk about government philosophy, and you have to talk about banking philosophy, right? Public credit is so powerful. And I state again, John B. Byles says public credit is like a talisman. Not only that, he says modern political economy, they teach poorly and inadequately. That's an attack on free trade. Free trade's not going to talk about the wonders of public credit. It's not going to talk about a high view of man. It's not going to say that public credit's sole purpose is to promote the general welfare. They're never going to say that. Public credit is box office. It is big. Now, I have a question. The people who hate public credit, what are they good at creating? Keep that in mind. Next slide, Victor. Bubbles go hand on hand with thermonuclear war. What I'm saying the people who have been creating bubbles are also responsible for having us on the brink of thermonuclear war with Russia. That's powerful, right? And so there is this bubble created called tulip mania in Holland, and it spread throughout Europe. What do free traders say about tulip mania and speculation? Look at all the bubbles that we have seen. The last bubble was the subprime mortgage bubble. Did they denounce the creation of it? Did they see a problem with that? Did Hillary Clinton see a problem with that? No, Hillary Clinton didn't see a problem with that. Right? The plague, cholera, the Black Death, the sweating sickness are epidemics that have periodically devastated the earth. But mankind are subject to moral as well as physical epidemics. Ever and anon, there stalk abroad palatable delusions that attack and prostrate the reason of the whole nations. The wisest are sometimes the first victims. Such epidemics have been seen in our own time. There were no novelties, and as they were not the first, will doubtless not be the last. The tulip mania broke out in Holland about 1634, and before 1637 had spread over a large part of Europe. Tulip mania was a bubble, right? The reaction towards tulip mania and speculation came about the Bubble Act to make sure bubble speculation like this doesn't run rampant and destroy economies. But what do free traders say? Repeal the Bubble Act. The same people who said repeal the Bubble Act, they're the same people that got Glass-Steagall repealed. Glass-Steagall separated the investment banks from the commercial banks. The investment banks were told to kick rocks. The commercial banks were told, here's how you're going to operate. You're not going to operate like an investment bank. You're actually going to operate for the physical economy. Your sole purpose as a commercial bank is to promote the general welfare. Your sole purpose as a commercial bank is to not promote British free trade, right? And so John B. Byles, first political economist in the 19th century, to say that tulip mania was a moral epidemic. He is saying that an epidemic, a moral epidemic, exists. Not just physical epidemics, but moral epidemics. You think Hillary Clinton would call tulip mania a moral epidemic? No, she wouldn't. She's pathetic. Would Barack Obama call tulip mania a moral epidemic? Would Trump call tulip mania a moral epidemic? No. Would Europeans call the tulip mania a moral epidemic? What is a moral epidemic? Better yet, What is the last moral epidemic or moral pandemic that we're going to have that will destroy civilization? Thermonuclear war. Take a look at the people who want thermonuclear war with Russia. Do they agree with David Ricardo, rebuking Adam Smith? Do they think that domestic commerce is more important than foreign commerce? No. Would they call out John B Byles for saying the British Empire should dissolve? They love the British Empire. Are they going to say that the able-bodied pauper should be employed productively? No. But they want thermonuclear war, right? What are they going to do? Are they going to promote public credit, or do they want to fight climate change? They want to fight climate change. They don't want to use government to promote the general welfare. They're not going to use public credit properly. They will create bubbles. And these same people who are creating bubbles left and right, the next big bubble is going to be Bitcoin. And Donald Trump has fallen for that. Right? We cannot have sophisms of free trade in the United States of America or in the West again. Sophisms of free trade is a moral a moral pandemic. We have to get rid of free trade. British free trade is leading us to thermonuclear war. British free trade is not premised upon the general welfare. British free trade wants foreign commerce over domestic commerce. Now, if British free trade wants foreign commerce over domestic commerce, and I showed you, British free trade doesn't like public credit, likes creating bubbles, doesn't like Glass-Steagall, doesn't want to employ the able-bodied pauper productively, wants the empire to live on, and rebukes Adam Smith for saying domestic commerce is better than foreign commerce, right? We have a problem. The American system of political economy needs to prevail, and everybody needs to know the sophisms of free trade. The sophisms of free trade would lead to a moral epidemic. This would be the last moral epidemic because this would be thermonuclear war. We have to stop this. John B. Byles will be fighting against the forces who want thermonuclear war. John B. Byles, if you read John B. Byles, you will know that John B. Byles says the sole purpose of government is to promote the general welfare. And if you want to promote the general welfare, how can you accept laissez-faire? Does Hillary Clinton accept laissez-faire? Yeah, she's a concubine. She hasn't read any books on political economy, just like for the post-Carnes free traders. The post-Carnes free trader has no knowledge of economic history, but yet they're seen as the authority. No, they're part of the sophisms of free trade. And the sophisms of free trade, something needs to happen, right? So John B. Byles writes this book, Sophisms of Free Trade. And in this book, he quotes Jonathan Swift, Benjamin Franklin. He bigs up Henry Carey, and he acknowledges Friedrich List. And he has an excellent section on public credit. I mean, if you really want to know the sophisms of free trade, see what free traders have to say about public credit. Public credit is awesome. And the sophisms of free trade, the people that promote it, what did they think about bubbles? What did they think about the repeal of Glass-Steagall? They're all for it. They don't want to be responsible before God and their fellow man. That's the problem with British free trade. John B. Byles was a breath of fresh air in British political economy. The British need to go back to their tradition and read John B Byles. They have to stop acting like concubines. They have to understand that not only do you have to dissolve the British Commonwealth, you have to make sure that these countries follow the American system of political economy. That means Jamaica. That means Australia. That means Canada. That means other Commonwealth countries. John B Byles is very special. So, with that said, that's the end of the presentation, Sophisms of Free Trade by John B Byles. The highlight of the presentation is the banking philosophy and that you need to employ the able-bodied pauper productively, because that shows a beautiful view of man, and man is not an animal. Free trade versus protectionism. Free trade, man is an animal. Protectionism, man is the lord of creation. And that's it. Thank you.
You all heard it from the man. The world leading authority on the subject of political economy. So that wraps up episode number 15 of the 19th Century American System podcast. I know Neil is going to get back into the workshop and come back with something even more mind-blowing, if you can imagine anything more mind-blowing than what is given us so far. So I'm going to ask everybody to stay tuned because there's more to come where that came from. On that note, we're going to wrap it up. Enjoy this, and we're looking forward to seeing you at the next event. Have a good night, everybody.